So on N7 Day, we all completely missed the obvious Krogan connection because of a tease I forgot about from N7 Day 2023.
Krogan standing behind the boots at the start? What? No way. Are you guys saying the Krogan's on the left? I see what you're seeing. I don't think that's a Krogan.
Let's dive into everything, starting with a recap to get everyone on the same page for this incoming theory. Skip to this timestamp if you just want the theory shenanigans. So the N7 Day blog, written by the executive producer of Mass Effect Mike Gamble, dropped 1 hour earlier than expected, which was hilarious and gave us a few bombshells, starting with EA's latest acquisition. The one thing on everyone's mind, including mine, was EA's stance after their new merger, and Gamble addressed that right away. He said that the next Mass Effect game is in development, and EA and BioWare remain committed to telling stories in this universe. Obviously, not the most reassuring thing he could have said, but at least he addressed it. Later down the blog, we also got confirmation from Gamble himself that he knows we're stalking his tweets, but most importantly, that his tweets do sometimes have secret meaning. Use those Gamble tweets in your theories, y'all. They do matter. Gamble saved the biggest reveal for last though, with a few bombshells about the Mass Effect TV show currently in the works. He said, the writer's room is going strong, and we've got a lot figured out about how it fits within the Mass Effect canon, and where it sits in respect to the new game. The show will explore a brand new story within the universe's timeline, and will be set after the original trilogy. It won't be a retread of Commander Shepard's story, because after all, that's your story, isn't it? Okay, so a few major things here, starting with the TV show. It will fit in Mass Effect's canon and probably be relevant to Mass Effect 5. It'll also be a new story not related to Shepard and be set after the original trilogy, which to me means post-Reaper War, otherwise he would have specified way after the original trilogy. Gamble finished with the very pointed statement of Commander Shepard's story being our story, which once again to me means that our choices and our story are being respected and won't be touched on, at least in the show. Alright, now for the teases. If you weren't following along during stream and this is the first time you're seeing the blog, I'm sure you've noticed the random italicized letters in some sentences. All throughout the blog, these italicized letters were everywhere, and all together formed 3 words: URL, Krogan, and N7. Now in stream, we completely went down the wrong track and thought we might be getting a private YouTube video, but in the end, it was all wrong. We missed the most obvious connection the Mass Effect team was trying to point us towards, which was the Krogan and the N7 from N7 Day 2023, which I had forgotten even existed.
Are you guys saying the Krogan's on the left? I see what you're seeing. I don't think that's a Krogan.
Except now, 2 years later, I can see it. It's very obviously a Krogan, so shout out to anyone who saw it originally on N7 Day 2 years ago. Looking here, we can see the Krogan's head moving from looking at the N7 to facing forward. I'll just play it a few times here because it's pretty hard to notice. Paused, we can also see the Krogan's nutrient hump, and very crucially, a red light on the front of it here. This is the key to everything, which we'll get to later. For now, we then got a second tease from the Mass Effect's Twitter account, which looked like this. Transmission intercepted, www.masseeffect.com/error820N7S12. We were supposed to fill in this Mass Effect URL, but we needed to connect it to the Krogan code from earlier. Now from the very smart fans over on Mass Effect Reddit, the code was cracked like this. In the original alphabet, these are the positions of the letters in the word Krogan. A lines up with 1, N with 14, and so on. Now for some reason, I guess based on the N7 from the original italicized letters in the blog, we had to subtract 7 from each of these letters. So this led to the adjusted numbers being what we see in the final column, which put together reads 4, 11, 8, 26, 20, and 7. And putting the string of numbers into the Mass Effect link from earlier, we eventually arrived at the tease for Mass Effect 5. A picture of a horde of Krogan in battle gear and brandishing weapons that was titled Civil War. When saving the picture, it was notably called Krogan Civil War. And here's what Gamble had to say about it in 3 tweets. First, he said that this was showing us a future event, not a past one. This rules out events like the Krogan rebellions. He also confirmed that this is likely showing us Krogan attacking other Krogan, hence the title Civil War and the matching file name Krogan Civil War. This to me rules out a galactic-wide civil war, which will make much more sense when we put everything together with Gamble's final tweet. He pointedly said, "Everything you've seen from all N7 days will connect," which around these parts is a huge bombshell. I've always considered Gamble's tweets the holy grail of any teases we've seen, and in the past he's given the impression that every tease on every N7 day does matter. But this is the first time he's acknowledged that they all, even the ones from 2020, will matter, and also will connect. Which is perfect because that's exactly what I've been covering on my channel from the beginning. As to how all N7 days connect to today's tease, I'll go over that in a future video. For now, let's focus on this Krogan Civil War and how it connects to the last major N7 day tease from 2023. And this red light on the most prominent Krogan and a few other ones as well is the key to what this picture is actually showing us. This red light on the Krogan perfectly matches the red light we saw on the other Krogan from N7 day 2023. This was likely the connection we were supposed to make when we saw the first tease that said URL Krogan N7. This Krogan acknowledges the N7 walking by, and then later on, the N7 nods to the Krogan behind it. Now this next part is going to confuse anyone who hasn't watched my past theory videos, so bear with me if you're new around these parts. Based on connecting everything from the past N7 days, I've come to the conclusion that Cerberus has infiltrated the system's alliance. This relay being Cerberus colored is partially why. This means that the new N7 we see at the end is likely also a Cerberus agent. After putting a bunch of other teases together, I also assume this is actually not even a human N7, but rather an artificial intelligence based on Shepard. Basically, a Shepard AI. I also think the location of this Krogan and N7 meeting is at a Cerberus facility because of the canisters nearby showing Cerberus colors. We can see the classic white, orange, and black colors that match the Cerberus logo here. So based on that assumption, we can theorize that the Shepard AI who works for Cerberus nodded to a Krogan behind it, which is one of the Krogan we then see engaging in a Krogan civil war. Shout out to Allosaurus Heck who came up with the idea of this being Andromeda Krogan fighting against the Milky Way's Krogan. However, I no longer think that's what we're seeing. Based on everything I've seen and theorized, I think it means this. Cerberus is influencing the Krogan in the Milky Way to fight one another in a civil war, which ultimately paints a picture that our choices from the trilogy are going to matter. First, let's tackle the timeline and setting of this image, because in it, there are a large number of hints that point to this civil war happening right after the Reaper War. Huge shout out to Blazybones in the Massively Affected server for putting this all together and showing how this makes sense. We see a tank here which Shepard actually sat in during the events of the Genophage mission on Tuchanka, and we also see an Executioner pistol wielded here, and an M55 Argus, which was an available weapon in Mass Effect 3. Based on the tank and weapons looking the same as from the trilogy, this to me means this scene is shortly after Mass Effect 3. Now for the setting. We used this tank on Tuchanka, and we even see hints of the Keystone area on Tuchanka that we saw in Grunt's loyalty mission from Mass Effect 2. Couple that with a Varen here, which did not travel to Andromeda to my knowledge, and this is looking like a scene taking place on Tuchanka. Which means as a whole, what we're seeing is Krogan on Tuchanka engaging in civil war shortly after Mass Effect 3. Now as to why they do this, I think it's because of Cerberus's influence based on the Shepard AI nodding to the Krogan from before. As a whole though, I think this Krogan civil war represents why our trilogy choices are going to matter in Mass Effect 5. When a fan asked Gamble who the Krogan were fighting, Gamble specifically said, likely other Krogan. Gamble's likely here is the key to our choices mattering. Based on this Legendary Edition statistics graphic released by Mass Effect's Twitter, 96% of players cured the Genophage, which means that in the Milky Way post-Reaper War, there would be a lot of Krogan around. Which means that what we're seeing here, based on most players' playthroughs, are likely Krogan fighting other Krogan, partially because of overpopulation, which to me also solidifies the timeline for Mass Effect 5, in the Milky Way at least, being set shortly after the Reaper War, because of the overpopulated Krogan being a problem. Now here's why the Civil War is likely connected to Cerberus. Regardless of anyone's playthroughs, Shepard defeated Cerberus and the Elusive Man died at the end of Mass Effect 3. However, this clearly didn't remove Cerberus from the game entirely, because we're seeing them again here infiltrating the Alliance. As the games have said, you can't kill an idea, and Cerberus's ideas of human supremacy would live on even if the Elusive Man died. In a post-Reaper War scenario, the biggest threat to humanity in Cerberus's eyes would definitely be the very large and continually growing Krogan population, which history has shown caused a galaxy-spanning war before. So here is exactly what I think we're seeing in this image. Cerberus has influenced these red-lighted Krogan to attack their fellow Krogan in a civil war in order to curb their population. They want the Krogan to eliminate themselves by pitting them against one another. And on a meta level, the Mass Effect team is doing this because for over 96% of players, there would be massive Krogan overpopulation going into Mass Effect 5. So the Mass Effect team is dealing with our Genophage choice here because Krogan overpopulation is not what they want the main plot of the next Mass Effect to be. This civil war is simply a world-building choice and secondary plot of Cerberus once again meddling in the Milky Way. For anyone who followed my big theory video before N7 Day, my original prediction was that we'd see a tease centered around the Shepherd AI and Liara. However, whatever is happening with those two is clearly tied to the main plot. Over 98% of the N7 walking video focused on revealing what I believe is a Shepherd AI. 2% of it was spent on the Krogan hidden in the shadows. This connection to the Krogan Civil War is not as important as what the Shepherd AI and Liara are engaged with. This is a small part of Mass Effect 5, not the main plot. So again, where I'm at with this picture is that what we are seeing is the result of the Mass Effect team setting up for the return of Mass Effect 5 to a post-Reaper war. They don't want to focus on the overpopulated Krogan, but they do need to address it in order to ultimately make sure our trilogy choices matter going into the next Mass Effect. I have way more thoughts on this that I'll be breaking up into separate theory videos, so make sure to subscribe to catch those. Otherwise, watch this video next to see my unchanged thoughts about what Mass Effect 5 will look like. See ya there.